Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game The First Course today. And thank you for supporting the show. I'm joined in this episode by game sommelier Joan, the Gamesmistress Moriarity. She approaches games differently than most, and her insight on gaming is simply amazing. She equates playing games to food tasting. It takes 3 bites to really get the feel of a game. Check it out. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is Joan, the Gamesmistress Moriarity. She's an author, YouTube creator, and a game sommelier at the game cafe Snakes and Lattes in Toronto, Canada. Joan, how you doing?
Great, thanks. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing all right, trying to figure out. I went out to lunch real quick, and the wind was so strong that my car doors were closing, people were flying everywhere.
Yikes.
You got a lot of snow coming your way? Oh,
Happily in Toronto at the moment, it's very, very cold, but also sunny, so can deal with that.
yeah.
Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. I love the concept for your podcast.
Thank
The
you.
whole Games at Lunch is something that so many people who would otherwise not bother approaching games material will get curious about, and I think it's a really cool idea.
Thank you. That's the whole idea. Whole idea. Try to make more games accessible to more people.
Excellent. I can identify with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You work as a game sommelier at a games cafe where you try to recommend games to people that kind of maybe push them out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Every once in a while, yes. You kind of have to do an immediate read of somebody when they come in. Um, when somebody walks up to that gigantic wall of games and is obviously very, very nervous, when their body language tells you that they're frightened by what they're seeing, you kind of need to meet them where they are. And sometimes that means just helping them to find where we keep our copies of Monopoly. But sometimes you get the chance to go a little bit farther, and there's just so much resistance and so much fear and anxiety surrounding the idea of putting yourself out there in that arena, of maybe being seen to look stupid and fail in front of your friends, that even people who have come to a board game cafe for the express purpose of playing games can still feel intimidated by it. There's just so much stigma that you can't always work through it, but you try your best. You invite people to maybe step outside their comfort zone if they're feeling up to it today, and if so, you make sure that the experience that they get is something that's really going to be welcoming and that's going to make them glad that they took that chance.
No, and I completely agree. It's trying to build off what they already know.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, people sometimes see this situation. The board game industry now is so big and broad, and they don't know that, and they are intimidated by that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I like to take the game. King of Tokyo is like my go-to. Let me introduce you to something that you know, because you know Yahtzee. But try King of Tokyo, which is literally Monster Yahtzee. It just puts just a little something else to Yahtzee, and build off of that. And I think, like you said, find out where they are, and just try to nudge them into something very similar. And that's a very hard thing to do.
Certainly can be.
So you wrote a book with Jonathan Kay called Your Move: What Games Teach Us About Life. And I devoured it. It was a very good book.
Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and a lot of what you talked about was what different games teach you about people, and what different games can teach you about life.
Mm-hmm.
And you did talk a lot about the fear and the pushing people, they're afraid to fail, and using telestrations as a way to, it's goofy, but it's something that you're supposed to fail, and
Yep. The game
that
doesn't work
safe
if people are
place.
succeeding. It's boring.
Yes, if the word is table, it's very boring.
All right, telestration is what happens when you take the telephone game and Pictionary and stick them in a blender and press the on button. Everybody gets a little plastic booklet and a dry erase marker. You write your name and your secret phrase, which could be anything, anything you would get in charades or taboo or any other guess the word game. You write it on there and you draw a picture of it on page 1. The catch is you've only got about 30 seconds to draw that picture, which means it's probably going to be terrible. And you're going to take that booklet, you're going to pass it to the player on your left. Player on your right passes you the booklet, and it's got a picture on it, which you can probably just barely make out. But you have to guess what it is. So you flip to page 2 and write your guess down and pass the booklet to the player on your left. Player on your right passes you a booklet. It's open to page 2. It's got a word or a phrase on there, which you have no idea where it came from. So you flip to page 3 and draw a picture of that on page 3, which is probably going to be terrible. Pass it to the person on your left, repeat. So draw, pass, guess, pass, keep going till the booklet comes all the way back around to you, and then you play show and tell. Okay, so here was my secret word, and here's the picture I drew, and here's what she thought that was, and here's the picture of that he drew, and here's what they thought that was. By the time it gets back around to you, it bears absolutely no resemblance to the original word, and that is the entire point. It's
and,
hilarious.
and that is the best part. Like,
It
how did
really
we end
is.
up with this when I started with that? I started off with alligator and I got back house. I'm not sure how that happened, but
This is the thing. People so often ask for games that are funny, and generally speaking, what I end up telling them is, okay, if you want a game that's funny, what you want is a game that you're going to be terrible at. Because failure is funny. Success feels good, but it's not funny. Failure is hilarious. So I'm going to give you something that you're going to be absolutely terrible at, that all your friends are going to be terrible at, and you're going to point and laugh at each other, and it's going to be awesome. Any game with a real-time element. Anomia is another one that I really like to use for this. You familiar with Anomia?
I am not.
Really, really useful as like a 10-minute lunch game. You've got a deck of cards, and in this deck, I'm just going to pull it out here. Obviously, this is radio, so your audience isn't going to be able to see it, but I can show it to you. Here we are.
Oh, nice.
You've got a deck of cards, and they're all the same on the back, as decks of cards tend to be, but on the faces, you'll have a colored symbol and a category of thing. So noun, jazz musician, bicycle brand, pizza topping, and we've got colors, symbols in different colors. It's colorblind friendly, so that's nice. And you just take turns flipping cards off the top of the deck in front of you. So I take a card off the top of the deck, I put it face up in front of me. Next player takes a card off the top of the deck, puts it in front of them. Keep going round around the table. Whenever you get a new card, it covers your old card. So each of us has one card showing. And if at any time 2 players have the same colored symbol showing, those 2 players are now in a fight. When you're in a fight, you have to name an example of the thing that's on the other player's card before they can name an example of the thing on your card. So if my card says famous painters and your card says dessert topping, I win the fight if I can say hot fudge before you say Matisse. But here's the thing. The word anomia is actually a real word. It's a word for that feeling when there's this word and it's on the tip of your tongue and you can't quite, but it's constantly that, and it takes advantage of a rather weird quirk of the human brain, which is that our brains don't work the same way when they're under time pressure as they do
They
normally.
do not.
They don't. So if the category is noun, anybody can name a noun. That's the easiest thing in the world. But if you have to do it like right this instant, you freeze. And watching people just not able to name a noun, it's glorious. It's wonderful,
Oh,
and it's so humanizing as
that's a
well.
good one. I'm going to track that one down. That sounds hilarious. It's a small box, so small
Yep.
footprint
They also have
game.
a party edition which comes with 6 decks, which is helpful for
Ooh.
avoiding repeats. And it's also great if you've got a big room full of people that you need to entertain. You can have tables of like 5 or 6 people. I wouldn't play it with 3, but 4, 5, or 6 players those are all good numbers for it.
Nice. I'll have to definitely look into that one. So, what is your current favorite game, Joan? If I made it up to Toronto, what
Oh
game is on
gosh.
your table?
Um,
It said current favorite, so you don't have to like try to think of your favorite game of all time. But If somebody comes over and says, "Let's play your favorite game right now," what are you putting on the table?
The last game that I had a really, really good time teaching at the cafe to a group of players who were not exactly veterans, but not exactly new arrivals either. Something that's like I asked them if they were feeling adventurous. They said, "Yeah, let's try something that's a little bit out there." And one of the I always like to bring 3 games to the table in every circumstance, so that they're not overwhelmed with options, but they feel like they have a little bit of agency and they can sort of vote on 3 different options. 3 seems to be a really good number. This has worked well for me. Um, the last time I did this with a group that felt like they were ready for something a little bit more substantial, they went with The Godfather: Corleone's Empire by Eric M. Lang, which is my favorite worker placement game. Imagine Lords of Waterdeep, but you can kill the other player's workers.
I'm
You
in.
can literally gun them down and send them floating down the Hudson River. There's a space on the board for the Hudson River where your opponent's pieces, their gangsters and their family members, are just floating there
That's
because they
awesome.
got gun. It's beautiful. It also has a really cool. You don't usually expect a worker placement game to incorporate area control. Uh, but it does in the form of this turf war. And I'm throwing a lot of jargon out. Again, your listeners who are familiar with all the ins and outs of these complicated modern Euro games know exactly what I'm talking about. For the rest of you, it sounds like a lot of jargon. It's not as complicated as it
Yeah.
sounds. You do have to be willing to go there, but it's not impossible. The components, the visual design of the game, the pieces are all created with an eye toward making it a bit easier to sort of grasp what's going on here. It's got these cool little metal suitcases for each player, and the goal is to get as much money as possible into your suitcase because the money cards that are in your hand, those are hot.
Mm,
They can be traced back to you. You have to launder it first
well,
and get it into
obviously.
your suitcase so that you can actually use it to bribe people and to get things done, and most importantly to win the game, because whoever's the most money is the one family that doesn't get slaughtered by Michael Corleone at the end of the movie.
Obviously. I mean, you don't want to end up, with the shotgun blast in the elevator or the getting killed
Yeah,
while you're getting a massage.
it's like right from the by the second turn of that game, they were already saying, "I love this."
Awesome.
It was just the right mix of clear goals. Like you've got a couple of job cards in your hand to start with, and each of those jobs requires certain resources to make them happen. Like in Catan, when you're building stuff, like take the cannolis would require 1 gun card. Um, Whereas drive-by shooting would require 2 gun cards. So it's like, all right, if you're not sure what to do, take a look at job cards, see what resources they need, send one of your people out to get those resources on your next turn, do the job, collect the resources, do the action.
That's
And
awesome.
that was all it took.
Oh,
They were fighting for turf, they were killing each other, they were laughing their heads off, they were stealing stuff from each other, just having an absolute blast.
no, and a lot of times, like mobster games, mobster themes games,
Mhm.
gangsters, they're very approachable because everybody likes The Godfather, Goodfellas, all those game or those movies. So to play a game similar to that, one of my buddy's favorite games is Borgata, which is a
I don't
deck
think I know that
builder.
one.
The deck builder game where you're building a mafia deck and you're trying
Mm,
to put the heat on your opponents who are then trying to bribe people, and then you got the turf war and you're trying to, or you're trying to, you start off as like a low level guy in your family, in your mafia family, and you're trying to work your way up to the dawn. And it's hilarious because it's, as you play the game, you, with the right people, you can
mhm.
get really into it. And uh it's a lot of fun, and it takes about an hour, so it's a good time.
The One of the many useful things about subject matter in games is the way that they can allow emotional permission for certain kinds of behavior and reinforce the magic circle, that barrier
Yeah.
between the real world and the game world. In a lot of cases, one thing that can sort of prevent people from having fun playing games is a sense that they can't be mean to their friends, they can't be mean to their family. It's not okay. Um, However, if it's not them, but an imaginary gangster who's doing it, then it's fine. Because of course gangsters are going to be mean. Pirates can be mean. Ninjas can be mean.
Yeah.
Giant monsters in King of Tokyo can sure as heck be
Hey,
mean.
Hey, I mean, I was just playing Coup last night, and the I was at my buddy's house, and his son was like, "Sorry, Dad, gotta Coup you. You got too many
Yep.
cards. It's not you. I gotta do what I gotta do to win." He's like 8 or 9.
Corrupt nobles in the capital city from the Hunger Games can be mean to each other, no
Oh,
problem. That's basically what it is, right? Coup. It's pretty
yeah,
much the Hunger Games, the
yeah.
noble anyway. But yeah, it's a lot of people I think are intimidated by the subject matter of these sorts of games. I think that they have to be familiar with it. They're expecting a trivia game when all it's really doing is sort of giving them carte blanche to sort of behave as this person would and not having to hold themselves to the same moral standards that they would for themselves in real life.
No, absolutely. That's an excellent way to put it. So, being a game sommelier, do you get a lot of times to do you play with your coworkers at lunch or on the downtime?
Not a whole lot of downtime in the shifts that I work there. Typically, I'll arrive at about 5 p.m. and I'll work until close. So, and that is the busy time. That is go, go, go. I'm lucky to be able to step off the floor for 10 minutes to wolf down some food before the end. And as far as the idea of everybody being able to have some time off at the same time, nope, not
Yeah, I
happening.
keep telling my wife I want to get up. We went to Toronto a couple years ago,
Oh yeah,
but I didn't know about snakes and lattes then. So I'm like, I want to go back to Toronto and go to snakes and lattes, and I want you to be my game sommelier.
make
Just
sure you come to the
bring
Bloor
me.
Street location. We have 3 locations in Toronto at this
Ooh,
point. The one at the Annex on Bloor Street was the original, the first one. It's got the quietest feel of the lot. It feels kind of like a rec room. It's kind of very cozy. The one down at College is the big one. It's much louder. It's more contemporary looking. Feels more like a bit more hip, I guess. But it's also closer to the University of Toronto, so the crowd tends to skew younger. The third one is up at Eglinton, and there was a really huge construction there that's up in the north of the city. So it was kind of hard to get to. It's also huge. It's 2 levels, and there are more families in that area. So
that is
again, a different
awesome.
sort of vibe and feel.
That's awesome. You have three of them that close together. We've got just the one pieces right downtown in the Soulard area here in St. Louis, and I go there when I can. My son loves it. Um,
What sort of neighborhood is it down there?
it's kind of like a yuppie area, but the farmers market's right in front of it. The St. Louis has the Anheuser-Busch breweries like right next door. So you're right down. You're downtown, pretty much on the river, but back a little bit. So when they opened it, I don't know if they really thought it was going to be such a massive hit. And it draws in people from everywhere, which is why I'm kind of shocked. There's been a lot of construction out in the West County area, and I'm surprised they haven't like opened a location out west to kind of pull that area in. So I always joke that we should open one in my neighborhood because we have a lot of kids in our neighborhood, a lot of families in our neighborhood. We're right next to one of the college campuses, so a lot of college students actually live in my neighborhood, rent houses, and then walk up to campus. So Joan, if you had a 30-minute lunch half hour, other than Anomia, which obviously would be a great game, what would be your go-to 30-minute game?
How many players?
You make it up, three, four.
All right, so I've got a group of 4 people. They're breaking for lunch. They've got 30 minutes. Are these people new to tabletop games, or have they been
Let,
playing it for a while?
we'll say they've been playing for a while.
All right, so they want something that's maybe a little bit different. Um, Gonna want something that is simple enough that they won't necessarily have to pay a whole ton of attention to it. They can also focus on their food. They can also talk about other things, but the game itself will reward attention if it's paid to it. Ever heard of Kobayakawa?
I have seen it because it's yellow, small box. I have never played it, but I have seen it.
Okay, this is Poker Light. Imagine you could play a full evening of um, of Hold'em poker in 25 minutes with up to 6 people. It's at its best with the full 6, but 4 and 5 are also good numbers. It has all the decision points of a poker game, all the same sort of reading people, calculating pot odds, that sort of thing, but it's much, much simpler mechanically. And although it's very easy to teach the rules, the big barrier to Kobayakawa is like I can teach you this game in about 2 minutes. But then when it comes to the point where you have to make your first decision, you only have two options. You're going to be a bit confused as to which option is the one that you want to go with. Um, it takes about 5 minutes of actually playing it to realize, okay, I get it now. I'm generally speaking, I'm a big believer when teaching a game of throwing people into the deep end from the beginning. We're using live
Absolutely.
ammunition from turn one, no practice round. Usually that's how it goes for me. Kobayakawa, I make an exception for because it's not intuitive. It's not similar to games people have played previously. I'm going to run this past you and tell me if you think you can visualize what kind of decisions you mean. You're a veteran game player. You know this stuff. So let's see how you respond to this. What you've got in this box is a deck of 15 cards, the numbered 1 through 15. That's it. No colors, no suits, no nothing, just 1 through 15. And you've got a bunch of tokens. They're all identical. Each player gets 4 betting tokens to start with, and you put 8 betting tokens in the middle of the table. You shuffle the deck, you deal 1 card to each player, then turn the top card face up, and the setup is done. Oh, also there's a first player token. So the person who's got the first player token is the first to act. They have 2 choices. Option 1, they can draw or flip. Oh, so the card that's flipped face up in the middle of the table, it's called the Kobayakawa. That will become relevant later. So option 1 is draw. You take the top card off the deck, you look at it, and you decide which of your 2 cards to keep now. You've got one that you were dealt at the start, one that you picked up off the top. You're going to keep one, and you're going to discard the other one face up where the others can see it. That's option 1. Option 2, flip, which means you take the top card off the deck and put it on top of the Kobayakawa. We have a new Kobayakawa, which will be either higher or lower than it was before. Then the next player does that. After everybody's had the choice to either draw or flip, everybody now faces the option to fight or fold. So if you fight, that means you like your hand. You think you've got a strong card here. You're going to take one of your betting chips and push it a little closer to the middle of the table. Fold means that you take your card, you put it face down, you say I'm out. Once everybody has decided to fight or fold, the fighters will show their card. Whoever shows the lowest card also picks up the Kobayakawa and adds those 2 cards together to get their total. Whoever has the highest total wins, taking 1 chip from the middle and also 1 chip from all the other fighters. And then they become first to act in the next round.
So the winner of the fight is the new first player.
Is first to act in the next round.
Okay.
And that is a disadvantage. It's kind of like being to the left of the players sitting on the button at a poker table, because you have the least amount of information to go on. You're going to do this 7 times. There's 8 chips in the middle. On the 7th and final round, the reward will be 2 chips instead of 1, and the price to fight is 2 chips instead of 1. You've now heard every single rule of this game. Sorry, there is one more rule. If you ever have a tie, and it can happen if the Kobayakawa and the low card cut it up to tie somebody else. Whoever acted earlier in the round wins that tie. So you now know absolutely all the rules. Do you feel like you would be competent to actually play this game?
Sure.
Wow.
I'm not saying I'd win it. I wouldn't win it.
Fair enough. But you get it.
Yeah.
I would say that you are surprisingly bold when it comes to these things. You have a willingness to sort of just try something, regardless of whether you know it's going to work, that most people lack. And that I guess that explains a lot about why you love games so much.
Oh, yeah.
But most people, and I imagine a fair number of your listeners at this point, will be thinking, okay, what? Most people have to see that in action at least once or twice to sort of get it. But by the time they get to the end of their first game, the most common reaction is, let's play again.
Oh, absolutely. That's the best. Those are my favorite 2 words to hear is play again when you get done with it.
Especially if somebody lost horribly. That sense of, okay, that sucked. Let's do it again. You can tell that they were really, really engaged by that game.
Yeah, I do a lot of play testing of reviewing of games, and my son and I play a lot of them, and he's 9, but plays at obviously a higher level than normal 9-year-old. I think it's because his dad's kind of weird, but that happened.
That
And
helps a
so,
lot.
yeah. And so a lot of times I know the game is good when we get done playing it, and his first words are "play again."
Yeah.
And
Oh, that feels
we've
so
been playing,
good.
yeah, and we've
I
been playing a
love
lot of
walking past.
really weird
I love
games.
walking past a table at the cafe where, about 40 minutes ago I taught them a game and they're setting up for a second go. It's just such a great feeling.
Well, I remember the last time. It's been a while since I've been down to our game cafe, but I was there with a big group of people from work, and we had like 2 or 3 games going at this big table.
Nice.
And one of the ones that we picked out was Camel Up, and none of us had played Camel Up before. And we sat down, learned the rules, played Camel Up, and we're like, oh my gosh, this game is awesome. We got to play this again now that I understand how chaotic the game. Because when you play it the first time, you're learning it, you're taking it all in, and hopefully you're enjoying it. But when you get done with it the first time and you want to turn right around and play the game because you're like, I learned all these lessons, and then you go play the second time and you still get beat because you went too far the other direction. You're like, ooh, I got it. Let's play this the third time. I understand it now.
It's almost like food tasters will have to take 3 bites to really get it. The first to get the general impression, the second to sort of get a sense of, okay, once I'm actually into this meal, here's what it's going to be like, and the third to seek out the more
The
subtle notes
nuances.
that are present there. Um, I gotta say, I've got a confession to make. I can't stand Camel Up, and it's probably not because
Oh,
of the game, but because of the teach. Um,
yeah,
that game is rough to teach because so many things about it don't become clear until you've played it for a little bit.
yeah.
And the other thing is that in the cafe's library, we have not one but 2 other easier to teach games that involve a race that you are betting on and trying to rig the outcome of. Lemming Mafia and Tortoise and the Hare.
Ooh, I like Tortoise and the Hare.
Oh, actually, there are 2 different games called the. Actually, it's Hare. There's Hare and Tortoise, which was the
Right.
winner of the Spiel des Jahres back in 1980, and
Oh, that's
there's
one I played.
the Tortoise and the Hare, which is part of ELO's Tales and Games series, which also includes the 3 Little Pigs, which is wonderful, and a lot of other games which I thought kind of fell flat, which is such a shame because 3 Little Pigs was so great and such a strong start for the series.
I played Hare and Tortoise, the one that won the Shield of Yars.
The 3 Little Pigs is the first of a series that ELO did. These are books. I get one, but again, they come in the box looks like a storybook, and it's got a little magnetic clasp on it. So you open the cover of the book, and inside it, that's the box where the game components are. It's a really beautiful presentation.
Oh yeah.
The Three Little Pigs was the first game in that series. You mentioned earlier the power of Yahtzee to bring people in with King of Tokyo. Three Little Pigs also uses the same roll, reroll, reroll thing, but instead of destroying Tokyo, you're building houses made of straw, wood, and brick, and occasionally being the big bad wolf and huffing and puffing and blowing the other players' houses in. Um, they did a series of them. There was another one that was Little Red Riding Hood. They did one for the Grasshopper and the Ant. They did one for Baba Yaga. Beautifully produced, all of them. Um, but all except the Tortoise and the Hare were disappointing to me after Three Little Pigs was such a strong start. But the concept of Tortoise and the Hare is the same as the concept from Camel Up and Lemming Mafia. There's a race, and you're betting on the outcome and naturally trying to make it go a certain way. It's a rematch. The Hare said, like, come on, I was just taking a nap. That doesn't count. So the Tortoise and the Hare are also joined this time in a much larger sort of race by the big bad wolf, the fox, and the sheep, and all 5 of them have different ways that they like to run, and it's very silly and it's got gorgeous artwork, and I love it. The bits are beautifully produced, and it's
Awesome.
so much easier to teach than Camel Cup. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Camel Up. I occasionally call it Camel Cup by mistake.
Well, they didn't do themselves any favor with the giant C.
There's only one C on the box, folks. It's Camel Up. How many C's in Camel Cup? 2. How many C's in the box? 1.
So a 60-minute game. You got a full lunch hour of people ready to sit down and play a game.
Big fan of Quantum.
Ooh, yeah. I like
Um,
that. Switching the dice, the different types of ships, and trying to match the right combinations.
So, the Galactic Empire building genre is famous for how long these games take to play, and how complex and involved and how many subsystems they have, and also for having disappointing anticlimactic endings because they just took so bloody long to get there. Sorry, not a fan of Twilight Imperium for that reason. Quantum distills all of this down into something that you could play in an hour, and it's really impressive for that. You're sending your fleets out to blow up the other player's ships. Your fleets are dice. Whatever number showing on the top of the die, that's how many spaces that ship can move when it goes. Fast ships are weak in battle, slow ships are strong in battle. So you're maneuvering around, blowing up the other player's ships, expanding your empire, researching new technologies and new abilities for your people. It's got almost everything that you want in that style of game, and yet you can knock it out in 60 minutes if you know what you're
Yeah,
doing. Your first
it
game's
was.
going to take about twice that long. It always
Yeah,
does.
yeah. It took us a
But
few tries to get it under an hour, but once you get, like you said, once you get a group of people that know the game, it's an hour, and it was a big hit in my office. We liked
it's
it a
really
lot.
pacey too. It goes along at a really good clip. That 3 actions per turn business keeps things pacey, and the other players care about what you're doing on your turn. So the downtime, in addition to giving you a chance to take your next bite, is also something that you have a reason to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great game.
Yeah, that is a consideration for lunchtime games, isn't it? You want a significant amount of downtime so people can actually chew their food.
Yeah, just enough. It's like like it all started in my office with Catan, which you make your decision on your turn, and then it goes around the table, but you're still involved because you can still make the trades with the other people. You're
Yeah, you'll have
still
to
yelling.
negotiate with your mouth full sometimes, but
Yeah, and you're still yelling at them about putting the road to block you off. You're like, come on, man. You can do that while eating your sub
look,
sandwich
I
or
just
whatever.
need one more wool. I know you've got a clay.
Come on, come on. Yeah. So,
No,
like,
no, you're winning.
I know you've got hidden victory point cards. I know it. Uh, so, a hidden gem, a game that you love that you just don't feel like enough people know about it.
Okay, I'm gonna go really, really obscure on this one. Um, you
This is
you may
this is
you
why I'm going to go buy it. It's because it's this obscure, and I'm going to have to give it a try.
so and it will, I think, be quite a useful lunchtime game for you. Most people, not most people, but a lot of people have heard of a game called Spy Alley.
Hmm.
It's not that obscure. However, I've described Spy Alley as 20 minutes of fun compressed into 1 hour. It's like that's about 20 minutes worth of game, and it takes too long for what it is, and it's also more complicated than it needs to be. Um, and apparently, somebody preemptively heard that complaint and went back in time and published a game called Simply Suspects, which a lot fewer people have heard of, by the same company with the same sort of art direction and style, same designers, um, which is basically 20 minutes Spy Alley.
Hmm.
And with a sort of a more ruthless theme. Here's how I pitch it to people at the table. So most of you have probably heard of Clue, right? You know,
Absolutely, I love Blue.
there's a murder you're trying to solve, and one of you is guilty of this crime. You're trying to figure out who. So in this game, you're all guilty, and the goal is to be the last one going to jail. So you've got this little pegboard in the middle. There's 7 pieces of evidence represented by these pegs and 6 different characters. And this evidence can be moved around as players move around the board. You'll land on a space and it'll tell you to doctor a piece of evidence to implicate somebody else, which means you take a peg, which was previously pinned on somebody else, and pin it on a new person. Just move the evidence. And there's 7 pieces of evidence. There's the tire tracks, the hair sample, the fire sample, the photograph. Whatever. And there's these 6 silly characters, and you're just moving these pegs around. And the game itself is just a straight up roll and move. Take a d6, roll that sucker, take your and when I'm teaching the game, I just say, okay, take this, roll it. They roll it, and I say, okay, you know what to do. And they do, because they've played Monopoly and Snakes and Ladders and stuff before, so they reach forward, they take their colored piece, and they move it that many spaces, and they do what it says on the space where they land. Which usually is either move a piece of evidence or remove evidence from a certain person. Occasionally, they'll say something like move forward. Now, there's one key space on the board. It's a circuit. You go round and round. There's one key space. If you land on it, it's the grand jury. If you land on the grand jury and you have 2 or more pieces of evidence pinned on you, you're out. Off to prison with you. Here's the thing, though. It's a secret identity game. Everybody's character, everybody's identity is a secret. You've got a little card
Nice.
that tells you which character card you have, that's which character you are. You know who you are. You don't know who anybody else is, and you have to imply this
Nice.
from the other player's behavior, from how they move the evidence around. If they seem to keep moving evidence off a certain somebody, maybe that's who they are, or maybe they're just trying to bluff you. Um,
Oh, it sounds like Heimlich and Company to an extent.
yes. Oh gosh, I missed that game so much. Are they reprinting it? Is this true?
Amigo Games has it.
Oh, thank God. I need that back in the cafe.
Yeah.
That was such a fantastic game to bring people into it who were kind of hesitant about playing modern games. Simply Suspects is a little goofier and in some ways a little bit more accessible, even though it's more complicated, which is weird. It's just that the complexities of it are conventions that people who've played Snakes and Ladders before are already familiar with. But here's the other
Right.
thing. So if you land on the grand jury and you have two or more pieces of evidence pinned on you, you have to reveal your identity, you're out of the game. But if you're sitting there and you don't have two or more pieces of evidence pinned on you, if you wish, you can start guessing other players' identities. And every time you guess right, you're out, you're out, you're out.
Wow.
If you're the last one who hasn't gone to prison yet, you win. Here's the thing though, one wrong guess and you're out.
Awesome. I'm yeah, I'm going to find this one. This one would be great with my group.
It's surprisingly good. I find that the production values and sort of publisher pedigree of a game tends to really affect the way people view it. Like people like us, somebody mentions the new Days of Wonder game, you already know what to expect.
Hmm.
Somebody mentions the new Fantasy Flight Games game, you already know what to expect. Somebody mentions the new Come On game, Cool Mini or Not, you know what to expect. Um, and when you see something by University Games or Winning Moves, that also tends to care. You think, oh well, this is going to be something that's meant for normies or whatever. But every once in a while, you get something. It's like, no, this this is for real, and it also is willing to take risks with its design that somebody like a Come On or an FFG would not be willing to take because they've got a fan base that expects certain things, and it can't look too much like Sorry or Clue because then it'll turn off the hardcores.
Yeah, I mean you're 100% right, and that goes. I'm a game designer as well, and so it goes with the whole thing of you got to know who you're pitching to. Like I wouldn't want to take my family friendly game and go to like Stonemaier Games and be like, hey, you want to make this game about a shark attack? It's not really what Stonemaier does. So, but that's awesome. Simply Suspects. I'm gonna have to track that one down. So, do you get involved with Kickstarter?
I have a rule with Kickstarter, and the rule is if the game was designed by Eric M. Lang, I'm in. If it wasn't, I'm probably not in.
Fair.
I love Marvel United. It is so good. It is my favorite superhero game. It's a family game that my fiance's 8-year-old can play with us. It's definitely a possible lunch hour game. It really brings out the sort of Avengers feel of working together with your teammates because every single card you put down, the player who goes after you is also going to use what is on that card to do stuff. Uh, you are never alone. You are never fighting on your own against these bad guys. You always have help. And that feeling is just exactly what a super team game should be about. And that was a Kickstarter exclusive. It's not exclusive, but that was absolutely a game where if you went all in and got zillions and zillions, that means that whenever your friends come over to play, if they've got a favorite Marvel superhero, you've got them.
They're in that deck.
And there are so many freaking supers out there, and if somebody's like, oh, you don't have Deadpool, oh, okay, it's okay. I guess I'll play Black Widow, and the fact that you don't have to disappoint them because it is this ludicrous, gigantic Kickstarter excess thing with every possible add-on. Um, it in this case, it's a genuine asset because people get to play as the character they love most. It's entirely justified, And so many people complain about Kickstarter FOMO, about how games didn't used to be, you didn't used to have to get 1 million expansions. That's like, okay, the Settlers of Catan came out in 1995. Do you know how much it costs to get every single Settlers expansion?
About $500, and I got them all.
Like, you can go all in on 2 giant CMON Kickstarters for that money.
Yeah.
That this business has always been hit driven, just like the movie business.
Yeah.
Something comes out, if it does well, it's going to have sequels, it's going to have expansion packs.
Sure.
That has always been the case. This is not new. The only thing that's new is the distribution method.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of people. I know somebody who doesn't do Kickstarter because he feels like it's cutting out from the local game shop, and I understand that. And I think that sometimes when big giant companies use it as a pre-order service versus,
Sure.
So I do back a lot on Kickstarter, but most of the stuff that I back are small independent people like me that are putting their game out there. They're trying to make $7,000 or $8,000 to bring their game to life, and
Yeah, people who would never be able to get shelf space at Target or
sure,
at Walmart or whatever.
no, absolutely. And so, I'm not saying I don't have big games, from CMON and all that. I do have them, but I also have a lot of games that are you would never, like you said, you would never see at Target or Walmart
Mhm.
because they don't have that power behind them that I back on Kickstarter for 30, $40. So I try to tell my wife, I'm just helping out the little guys, That's what this is. I get no, I get a game out of it. Yeah, yeah, sure, but really what I get out of this is the appreciation of helping somebody else out.
For sure, and sharing in their craft and the passion that they've applied to what they've created. I mean, the rule is true. If you want to make $1 million in the tabletop game industry, start with 2 million. Um, Nobody. Okay, I'm not nobody, but the vast majority of people, anybody who's smart in this business, is not in it to get rich.
No,
That's
it
not what it's
happens
for.
sometimes.
Occasionally, yes, once in a while you'll get a Trivial Pursuit or something,
No, yeah,
but that's not the norm.
no,
The reason why people do this is because they're passionate about games and they have an idea that they love, something they've played that's brought a lot of joy to people, and they want to share that joy with the rest of the world.
yeah,
So
couldn't
that
agree
has its
more.
drawbacks too, of course. You tend to see a lot of bad business decisions because any industry that's driven by hobbyists is going to see bad business decisions. It's
Yeah,
not the same skill set. But every once in a while, you see a miracle happen, and something really, really beautiful just comes into existence that wouldn't otherwise.
so to step back a minute to a comment you made on Marvel United, that what you liked about it was that you could be whatever superhero you wanted. You didn't have to
Mhm.
disappoint anybody.
If you're a Marvel fan, of course.
Sure, sure. That brings me to my next question. Do you have a color that you need to be when you play so that you're not disappointed?
Nah, I'm the one who waits to see what everybody else picks and goes with what's left. Uh, if I'm told that I have to pick, usually I'll gravitate towards red or yellow, but if pink is available, I'll often go with that.
Well, I tell this story a lot, but my son's favorite color is purple. And when we were doing our game, Fences, we had he was one of the main play testers because he was, I don't know, 6 at the time, 5, 6, I don't know.
Mm.
But he so when we got down to making the game, we put purple in there, and we're like, he play tested the game just as much as anybody else, and so purple's in the game because my son likes the color purple. There you
Purple is
go.
a popular color. I mean,
Yeah.
anytime you put purple in that box, somebody is going to grab it first thing when it gets
Well,
opened up.
and the purple that we went with matched the purple of the game so well. It's like it's
Mm,
a farming game, so it's got like earth tones in it and everything, and there's some purple flowers that kind of match the purple hen houses, and so it fits the game very, very well. And
nice.
but yeah, purple is not a color you see a lot. Pink you don't see a lot. I had to buy
No,
the Ticket to Ride breast cancer awareness pink train,
nice.
so I have those.
Typically, when there's 4 colors, you'll have the same 4 colors that you see in Sorry or Ludo or Trouble. It's always red, blue, green, yellow. If there's a fifth color these days, it'll usually be purple. If there's a sixth one, usually it'll be black or white. It takes a while to get around to orange. And pink also takes a while to get there. In an 8-player game, you'll see brown or pink or black.
Yeah. So our colors are red, yellow, blue, and purple, and our 5-6 player expansion adds white and green.
I like when the colored pieces of a game also include a shape element so that people with color blindness can still play them.
But we went with we tried to be as color agnostic as we could with the tile layouts and everything, so that the cows look different than the sheep, looks different than the pigs, and then it's all divided up, so the backgrounds are different for each animal, so that there's a lot of visual things to help people with any kind of vision problems be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, the early editions of Ticket to Ride were not colorblind friendly, but it didn't take long for them to realize, wait, we've got an underserved audience here, and they started adding those symbols to go
Yep,
with the
the
colors.
symbol. Yep, and then
And
every car's a different. Every color's a different train car. They got the symbols in the corner. They got the symbols on the board.
it's good to see publishers being more mindful of that.
Yeah, it is. It is great.
I talk about a lot of things involving games and play, and so much so that I had to co-author a book. I've had to do lectures. Um, I've had to get a job where I can do this. And at this point, I'm now trying to reach a wider audience through YouTube.
Yes.
Ultimately, here's where I'm coming from in this. I believe that games and play are something that is essential to human culture, and it's something that we have lost. I believe that for thousands of years, human beings of all ages, in all cultures, all genders, all backgrounds, all social castes, have played games as a standard part of what it means to connect with friends and family. This has always been there. You see it all around the world. And then in the mid 80s, electronic games happened. And that was the moment when the word game came to mean electronic game. You've run into this, of course. Whenever you mention the word game to somebody, if they don't have context for it, they assume you're talking about electronic games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to specify that you're talking about
Board
tabletop
games.
games.
Tabletop game. Yeah.
And for the most part, and at first, you take a look at the early advertisements for the Atari 2600, you see families sitting together playing these games. Parents, kids, boys, girls, men, women, they're all in the picture. Then came the video game crash of the mid 80s. And they started specifically targeting boys because that's one of the things you can do with a flagging market is to zero in on a particular demographic and say, this is for you. And electronic games became a solitary activity. It wasn't something you did together with other people on the couch. It was something you did by yourself. And the vision of games, the future of games, this is what games are going to mean now, is something that we do by ourselves. And now we live in a day and age when people spend so much time looking at screens that they feel like they've lost that social connection with people. They've also lost the ability to be playful, which I define as sincerely trying to succeed at something while at the same time being comfortable with the possibility that they might fail. And that's something that in a lot of cases in electronic games you can't really do. Like even the really, really tough games like Dark Souls or something like that, you can't lose at Dark Souls. You just keep trying until you win. And you don't really have to put yourself out there in the same way. You don't have to be seen to fail in front of others. That loss has made us more risk averse. It has made us more frightened to take chances. It has made us more frightened of being seen to look stupid. And it's made us more judgmental of ourselves. And that's something that I passionately believe that we need to recover, that we need to get back. And the way to get back there is by playing together, by losing together, by failing together, by laughing at our mistakes and our foibles and being okay with it. Finding that warmth, that acceptance, that authenticity, that vulnerability at the game table is a safe space. It's a place where you can mess up, and it's not only expected but required in order for the game to be fun.
Right.
You talked about telestrations before. that game doesn't work if people aren't screwing up.
Right.
It's so here's the thing though, getting people to the table in the first place, it's hard. You've I was actually wanting to ask you about some of the resistance that you've encountered getting people to come to the game table to play stuff, because I see it a lot at the cafe. People show up at a place, they've deliberately gone out of their way and paid money to go to a place which is a board game cafe where everybody is going to be expected to sit down and play games, and they're afraid.
Hmm.
They're frightened of the idea of playing something where they have to take the chance they might be seen to make a mistake. They stick with games that have emotional stakes that are so low they might as well not even have played. They'll play Cards Against Humanity. They'll play Snakes and Ladders. They'll play Battleship. They'll play Monopoly. And these are fine games, especially if you're tired and you don't have the energy to put yourself into it. That's all fine. But in an awful lot of cases, it's not exhaustion, it's fear that I see. And helping people to get past that, helping people to feel like it is safe to do this, um, is really what I'm all about. And here's what I'm doing now. This is the latest project. This is I was what all of this work I've done. Doing lectures, writing books, doing game design, development, art direction, retailing, all this stuff. This is what it has all come to. Um, I've started a YouTube channel in which I share the secrets that I've learned that help people to come to that table and enjoy themselves. It's for people who have heard that, oh, apparently tabletop games are back, but are intimidated by it for a lot of really good and legitimate reasons. Um, it's there to help them to come back to the game table, to rediscover play, and also for people like us who know what this is good for and who want to help more people to join us. That's what that channel is all about. The website is joanthegamesmistress.com. The YouTube channel is Joan the Games Mistress. My fiance and I do the videos together. Um, and I'm really we've only been doing it for about half a year so far, but I'm really pleased with what we've been able to put out.
When I was trying to contact you, find a way to contact you, I simply Googled your name, which luckily there's not a lot of Joan Moriartys out there.
Yay!
And so you were easy to find. And I got onto your website, flipped over to your YouTube channel, watched your introductory video, and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole watching a lot of your videos. And I'm like, hey, I was trying to remember to email her instead of all this other stuff, but now I need to go back and email her. So, but no, I think, what you're trying to do is great. I'm glad there's people out there like you that are trying to erase the stigma, that, you can lose and have fun while doing it. It's okay. Even with like my son, like I said, he's 9, and some things he does and says, it's like, no, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to fail and
Yeah,
to
that's
lose.
the only way that you can learn. It's our educational system, our social systems, everything kind of drives us to believe that it's better to not try at all than to try and fail. And that's a safe way to live, but it's also a good way to make sure that you'll never come up with any original ideas, never do anything that hasn't been done before, never reach your potential. And we
Yep,
need people to reach their potential. The world is in a mess and has a lot of really, really difficult problems for which the tried and true solutions haven't been working.
I agree.
And I'm really, really encouraged to see that to see people like you who are out bringing this to their workplaces, for example, because that's another place that's notoriously um, uh, failure phobic, where people don't want to make proposals that are going to be taken badly, even when we're dealing with unprecedented economic realities that call for bold ideas and bold proposals that might or might not work. I really feel like having a culture of play where you work, where having a place where people go at lunch to just try stuff and have fun with it, has
Yeah,
got to do a lot, not only for morale, but also for the corporate culture and all the businesses that are involved there. This sense that it's worth it to try something, even if it might not necessarily work.
yeah.
I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you. No, we had to do some level setting. We played a lot of Clue and different versions of Clue,
Mhm.
which I didn't realize there were so many versions. Not IP where they just like slapped Simpsons on it, but like different versions of Clue out there. And so we've been playing a lot of that. We once we 3D printed a trophy that the winner gets to put on their desk, a lot more people were like, well, how do I get the trophy? I'm like, well, you got to show up and win a game.
Nice. If you can get hold of a copy of an old game called Clue the Museum Caper, did
Oh,
you know
I've
that
got
there
it.
was a... Oh, you do?
The
Amazing.
hidden
Hidden
movement game.
movement Clue
Yeah,
game. Genius.
art heist. Yeah. Oh man.
So
Actually, I
good.
just picked it up at a board game garage sale,
Oh,
and
that's so cool.
I mean, I like this guy posted
What
a
a
picture.
find.
Yeah, my I was on Facebook and somebody posted, "Hey, there's a board game garage sale at such and such location." And I saw that game there, and I told my wife, "I'm like, I'll be right back." And I jumped in my car and I drove to the other side of town to pick up that game. I ended up picking up a few more too. It's a good thing she doesn't listen to my podcast. Because I picked up like 3 games that day, plus one from my buddy, so I picked up a lot. But hey, but I love it, and that game works so well with like 4 people because you need more people. And
Right.
then I love being the hidden movement character and the non-hidden movement character because I think a lot of times with the hidden movement games it's more fun to be the hidden movement person, but in this one it's not. Like it's fun to try to with the locks and the cameras and the there's just so much going on in a little Clue game from like I want to say 89.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. So I'm trying to find time to explain it to my wife and my son so we can sit down and play it because it's a riot.
So the trophy thing was something that really helped bring more people on board, was it? What,
Yeah,
what, what else
because
did you... What other sort of resistance did you run into,
I
and
just
how did you overcome that?
so I started with that lunch. So people saying that I don't want to. I like to take a half hour lunch so I can leave early.
Hmm.
Fine. There's
Sure.
games that can be played in half an hour,
Yep.
15 minutes, 10 minutes. Come down and play around a coup. What's that take? 5 minutes, 10 minutes to play around a coup. Just play around a love letter. Then you start getting those people that just want to play these short games. So they sit at, we had a big conference room, and so they sit at one end of the table playing like the short game and leave, or we got the longer game on the other end. And eventually they're kind of like, what are you guys doing down there on the other end? And so you start that, and then they come into work early or stay the extra half hour or whatever. And so we started building a big community that way. And once we started kind of knocking down the barriers and breaking the silos and making the connections across different departments, management started kind of seeing that as a plus as we started like I knew somebody in accounting, I knew somebody in engineering, I knew somebody here, there, and everywhere, and they knew me. And so
Fantastic.
it started building those, like I always say, that board games build bridges. And we started building the bridges. We took it across campus. I worked at a big company with a giant campus, multiple buildings, and we started reaching other buildings. And then every Friday we'd go to the big centralized dining facility and meet up with group from people from all over campus, and we'd have 3 or 4 games going at tables there, and even the more people walk by and like, what are you guys doing over there? Like, oh, we're playing a game. And the next week they would maybe sit down and play a game. So
Wow, so there really wasn't a whole lot of resistance. It really was just people saw how much fun you were having and they wanted in.
it was just a matter of doing it and being confident in doing it,
Hmm.
and then getting more people to feel comfortable doing it. And then once we kind of hit that tipping point of enough people, then it was kind of like people, kind of like, with Kickstarter, people don't want to back the game unless it's a winner, but they
Right.
may not be a winner until you back it.
Humans are
You know,
pack animals when you get down to it.
yeah,
It's a lot easier for us to do something when we see everybody else doing
yeah.
it.
And so once we hit like that tipping point where we had like 6 or 8 people every day, then we started having 10 or 12 people every day. And then we started
Right.
having multiple conference rooms and multiple things. And we had like a specific Catan trophy because that was the main game that we started
Hmm.
with. And then we printed off another trophy for like if you won a game that wasn't Catan. And then if you had the Catan trophy, you had to we had all these rules where you had to defend the Catan trophy. And it was a good time. Now we're
Nice.
trying to rebuild something similar to that in a much smaller company, but we're trying to again meet people from other divisions, departments. So I always find board games. I mean, that's my go-to for anything. My neighbors, we played board games with our neighbors, family, friends,
That's
conventions.
wonderful.
So
Oh, that's what it's all about.
That's right. Well, Joan, I'd like to thank you for being on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Oh, no, I really enjoy talking with you and hearing your philosophy and your thought processes behind why you do what you do. I wish you all the luck in the world with your YouTube channel.
Thank you so much.
If I ever make it to Toronto again, which I will make it there. I will come find you at the Snakes and Ladders, and you can show me some whole new game I don't even know about. It'll be great.
Looking forward to that.
So if anybody want to reach out to you, Joan, what's the best way they can find you?
Let's see. I try to avoid Twitter. My therapist has forbidden me to actually interact with anybody there. I just sort of do
Probably
announcements.
safe.
You can email me at joanthegamesmistress@gmail.com. You can also find my website with a couple of submission forms there at it's just joanthegamesmistress.com. You can message me directly at the YouTube channel. And if you've taken a look at all this stuff and you've decided that you'd like to help me make that part of it my full-time job, then you can go over to patreon.com/JoanTheGamesMistress and help support me. You can get some cool perks like live Q&As with me and recommendations. You can also hire me to help you set up a game night or set up a role-playing campaign.
There you
a
go.
lot of people, that initial barrier to entry is the thing that stops them from starting out playing D&D or whatever it is.
Yep.
I've had a lot of experience helping people start with this. I'm looking forward to when Stormcrow Manor opens up again, because then I can start running first-time role-playing games, and that's a whole other kettle of fish, which I'd love to get into at some point. Or if you want to run a game night, you've got a group of people, you've got a certain space to work with, and you're just not sure what games to run or how to teach them, or what to recommend for people, or anything else, I can help you set up an event.
Excellent. And also, you can go to Amazon or wherever you buy your books or your ebooks and pick up Your Move.
What board games teach us about life.
Yes, excellent. Like I said, I love the book. It definitely, obviously, it's what made me come find you. So I highly recommend that book. And as usual, you guys can reach me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com, facebook.com/groups/eatlunchandboardgame, and my website's eatlunchandboardgame.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.